Social distancing.
Yeah.
Move that way, pass through.
Can you really defend
You're supposed to be more than 2 metres apart.
Can you defend your actions?
You're supposed to be more than 2 metres apart. Move out the way.
Can you really defend your actions, Mr. Cummings, during the lockdown? Not a good look, Mr. Cummings, is it?
Why do you think it was reasonable to travel 260 miles, Mr. Cummings, when you might have taken coronavirus?
I behaved reasonably illegally. Hey, little Kenny, you ready to go?
Not a good look, though, is it, Mr. Cummings?
Who cares about good looks? Well, it's a question of doing the right thing. It's not about what you guys think. No problem, Dom.
Did you return to Durham in April? Lots of people wanting to know this morning. Did you return?
I did not.
You didn't return?
Get 2 metres.
Can I ask you, while I'm keeping my distance, how many times have you left London during the lockdown, Mr. Cummings? The nation would love to know.
Hang on.
Mr. Cummings? Are you going to resign, Mr. Cummings?
Did you leave the family home in Durham while you
Is it one rule for you, Mr. Cummings, and another rule for everybody else?
Do you think you're above the law?
Are you the special one, Mr. Cummings?
What do you say to them? What do you say to
Why did you not stay in your primary residence, Mr. Cummings, as the government guidelines state? Why did you go 260 miles across the country?
What do you say to
We'd love to know. Lots of MPs are calling for you to resign, Mr. Cummings. Will you resign?
Why do you not follow your own rules?
Why are you not following your own rules, Mr. Cummings?
Did you
Do you have
interact with anyone while you
to
were
say
in
to people
Durham
who've been
outside your
self-isolating
family?
in this country?
Number 10's put out.
Anything to
Number
say?
10's put out a statement. Watch out, advice that you have.
You have nothing to add.
Careful.
Do you have anything to add to people who've been self-isolating across this country, who've seen that you've travelled miles across it? I think that's a no.
Stay at home. You should not be meeting family members who do not live in your home.
I spent 2 weeks in hell, basically, trying to look after myself and my daughter. Some of those days I could barely get out of bed to feed her, and then I find out he's broken those rules, and I've gone through that torrid time perhaps for no reason.
If anyone is thinking, taking any chances, just take a look at me. I'm in the intensive care unit. I can't breathe without this. I'm freaking sick. I'm with a husband. I can't sleep.
One of the hardest, cruelest parts of all this is burying the dead, and the fact that social distancing rules mean hardly anyone can attend a funeral now.
He was a young boy, age 13, without his mother, without any sibling on his deathbed in the last moments.
So many millions and millions of people across this country have been doing the right thing. Millions going through the hardship of self-isolation.
Just going back to what you said about Barnum Castle, could you point us to where in guidance in the rule book it says that it's okay to make a practice drive journey and then get out and sit somewhere?
Well, after recovering from this disease, my job is one of the jobs that the rules say you should go back to work if you can do. And well, with respect, I think it's very relevant, because I was allowed to drive back to London and go back to work. So.
You weren't. This isn't about your drive to London. This is a drive. You said it's to test if your vision was okay, if you were getting on the wheel, which sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Then you didn't just go for a drive to check. You went to a beautiful nature spot and sat outside, but you said 15 minutes.
Well, I think that to be honest, the state that everyone was in, this was nothing to do with a beauty spot, and contrary to lots of the reports, I wasn't sightseeing. I did not go to the castle. I wasn't walking around. There are lots of things that are being said about this that are not true. We just went for a test drive, drove south, and ended up pulling in by the side of the road by a river on the outskirts of town. And my wife and I discussed it and said, "Okay, you can drive. This feels safe. Let's go back, and tomorrow we'll pack the car up and go back to work." As I say, I was entitled to go back to work. I was encouraged to go back to work, and I think going back to work was the right thing for me to do. But I think it's also reasonable to try and do it safely. for me, for the family that I'm driving, for everybody else on the road as well.
You heard yesterday the long account that Dominic Cummings gave us today of his reasons for driving 260 miles to Durham, and inevitably it leaves some questions unanswered. So his main reason, he said, for driving to Durham was because of protests outside his house. But of course, in full lockdown, the risk of those protests is reduced perhaps to nil. So it seems a slightly odd reason. I wondered if you'd asked him about that. And secondly, his excursion to Barnard Castle, 30 miles, again, seemingly breaking the rules, was to test his eyesight to see if he could drive back to London. But why didn't his wife, Mary Wakefield, who was better than he was, drive back to London? Or why didn't you just lay on, or the government lay on a car, given his importance?
Well, look, I mean, Robert, you're a formidable journalist, and those are very good questions. But I have to tell you that, to the best of my knowledge, Mr. Cummings has just subjected himself to your interrogation for quite a long time now about these very detailed matters, and has produced quite a substantial chunk of autobiography about what happened in the period from the 27th of March to the 14th of April. I really feel that it would be wrong of me to try to comment further on, what he said. I think people will have to make their minds up. But on the point about eyesight, I might just say I'm finding I have to wear spectacles for the first time in years because of I think because of the effects of this thing. So I'm inclined to think there's some. I think that's very, very plausible that that eyesight can be a problem associated with coronavirus. On your this afternoon.
Evening. Dominic Cummings broke the rules. The country can see that, and it shocked the government cannot. The longer ministers and Prime Minister tell us he worked within them, the more angry the response to this scandal is likely to be. He was the man, remember, who always got the public mood, who tagged the lazy label of elite on those who disagreed. He should understand that public mood now, one of fury, contempt and anguish. He made those who struggle to keep to the rules feel like fools, and has allowed many more to assume they can now flout them. The Prime Minister knows all this, but despite the resignation of one minister, growing unease from his backbenchers, a dramatic early warning from the polls and a deep national disquiet, Boris Johnson has chosen to ignore it. Tonight we consider what this blind loyalty tells us about the workings of Number 10. We do not expect to be joined by a government minister, but that won't stop us asking the question.
Hello there YouTube, and welcome along to Steve's Coronavirus Update Episode 8. So what you have just seen there at the beginning of this video for the last 8 minutes or so now is footage taken from TV, whether it's from BBC News, Sky News, Channel 4 News, etc, etc, from some of the events that have happened within the last week. And I'm actually going to talk to you about some of those events that have taken place over the last week, because I do think that we have seen some very extraordinary news stories coming out over the last week, and I've got so much more that I do want to talk to you about, of course, which I am going to talk to you about very shortly, but I do want to start off with Dominic Cummings, I think, and it's very important that I do talk about this because it's just enraged not just me, but other people that are probably watching this as well. It's probably enraged the whole country, the whole of the UK, given the actions that he has done. So I'm going to tell you the story of it because some of you may know it, some of you might not know it. So I'll tell you the backstory to this. So obviously the UK, just like many other parts of the world, have been in lockdown since the end of March or beginning of March, and there was a couple of times, from what I've gathered, a couple of times where Dominic Cummings, who is the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's top aide, he's technically Boris Johnson's right-hand man, he has flouted those lockdown rules. Now what makes matters worse is the fact that when he breached lockdown, he had his wife in the car with him who was experiencing symptoms of COVID-19. He also had his son, his 4-year-old son, in the back of his car with him, and he drove 260 miles to a little county, a little place in the UK called Durham, from London, and it was from there that he decided that he was going to seek isolation at his parents' farm in Durham. Now, I don't understand why he drove 260 miles. The really bad thing about this is the fact that his wife's sister, his sister-in-law, lived 2 streets away in London from where they lived. So I do not understand why he had to take a 260-mile journey to Durham to go and self-isolate with his wife and his son. I really don't understand why he had to do that, honestly. You know, if he needed childcare, he had his sister-in-law who could have easily have looked after his child, you know. I really don't understand why he done that, you know. And to make matters worse, obviously all this came out. Yeah, all this came out, and he then basically did a press conference a couple of days later after this came out, and he wanted to get some facts straight with the media and the press. So he sat in Downing Street's Gardens, and he took questions from the press. He also revealed what he exactly told the Prime Minister Boris Johnson the previous day as to how things panned out with him. And it was from there where he did reveal that he did a 60-mile journey in his car with his wife and his kids to Barnum Castle. And it was from there that he said the reason why he done that was because he wanted to test his eyesight. Now, I don't understand why you would also do that. Why would you put the lives of your wife, yourself and your 4-year-old son at risk because you wanted to see if your eyesight is okay by getting into a car and driving 30 miles or 60 miles respectively to a location? You know, I really don't understand why you would do that. I mean, literally, you know, it makes me think. I mean, I don't drive. I don't have a driver's license. I don't drive. But you know what? It makes me think, you know what? If that's the case, let me get into a car. Let me see if I can drive a car, you know? Let me see how far I can get in terms of driving a car before I get stopped by the police, you know, or something like that. Because honestly, who would do that? Honestly, who would do that? Who would get into their car? Who would drive 30 miles for them to see whether or not their eyesight was okay for them to drive back to London? You know? I really don't understand that. I really don't get that at all. So, and it does make me think, you know, he clearly went to Durham to spend Easter, because that's when it happened. He clearly went to Durham to spend Easter with his family. It's obvious, you know? You know, of course, he will, you know, admit that he didn't see his family and stuff just to protect his wife. But I bet you he did. I bet you he put his wife in a separate house, and him and his son stayed with his parents until she felt a lot better. And you know, and they probably drove to Barnum Castle, probably to, you know, to go and do a bit of sightseeing, I bet, you know. So, you know, so in theory he did flout the lockdown rules, and a lot of people are agreeing that, you know, he did flout lockdown rules, which he did flout the lockdown rules, you know. And the really bad thing about this is, and you know, you can tell that him and Prime Minister Boris Johnson are best mates, because Boris Johnson has backed him. Why would you back him? Why have you not sacked him? just like every other minister who has breached lockdown rules has done. You know, I really don't understand why the Prime Minister has decided to back his right-hand man. You know, you can easily replace him with a snap of a finger, you know. It's easy. You get rid of him, you bring the next one in, and then they're your right-hand man, you know. So I really don't understand why, you know, why Prime Minister Boris Johnson has backed him all throughout this. I really don't, because there's been other ministers who have breached lockdown rules and they have instantly resigned because they've regretted their decision. The really bad thing about this as well is that Dominic Cummings also revealed that he does not regret what he did, you know. And that is really bad thing about all of this, is he did not regret what he did, and I find that absolutely awful. I find it really shameful. I find it really misleading of the government to not sack him, given that, you know, he did wrong, because if this was anyone else, they would have got fined, they would have got arrested. Apparently officers spoke to Dominic Cummings, and I'm surprised that they didn't fine him. I'm surprised that they didn't arrest him or anything like that, you know, given the amount of miles he'd driven, you know. And I do think that it is just absolutely awful that we are now being run by a government who have been misleading the lockdown rules that they have set out themselves. You know, and I think it is just absolutely ridiculous. It is an absolute and utter shambles that we are in now. We are in an absolute shambles, and I just can't believe that, you know, that the government have allowed him to do this. But yeah, if there's anyone else out there who have gone out of their way to seek childcare and have been stopped by the police on their journeys and have been given fines, those fines will not be reimbursed at all, which I think is absolutely poor, because there are people out there who have, during lockdown, been trying to find childcare for their child, maybe because they've been ill themselves and they worry and they fear that their child may catch what they have. And they've not been able to do that, because if they did, then there's a risk that they would have been, you know, they would have been fined for breaching lockdown. And I just find this whole thing an absolute shambles now. Honestly, I really do. You know, I have lost faith in the government. I, just like everyone else watching this, has probably spent the last 10 weeks now, you know, has probably been spending the last 10 weeks staying at home, saving lives, protecting the NHS, and now staying alert, controlling the virus and saving lives, right? But I feel as though now those messages no longer apply, because we've got ministers in our government who have decided to breach lockdown, you know, and I just find this now an absolute shambles, that there is no going back from this. There are now people who are deciding to breach lockdown rules themselves, going to beaches, going to parks, and not social distancing anymore. And I can totally understand why people are doing this. People are furious, people are angry. When I found out about all of this whole scandal, the Cummings scandal as I will call it, I was absolutely in anger, you know, and I'm surprised that I'm actually keeping calm over this right now while talking to you guys, because it is an absolute shambles and there is no going back from this at all. You know, and to be honest with you, I have been saying that, you know, I do reckon that if Dominic Cummings doesn't resign, then I think Boris should, because at the end of the day, he is our leader. He is supposed to be setting an example, and what Dominic Cummings did was unacceptable. You know, it wasn't acceptable, it wasn't reasonable, and it wasn't legally done neither. You know, he breached lockdown rules and he must pay the fine for it, whether it's money, whether it's, you know, whether or not it's being sacked from his job. You know, I just don't understand why he is still in government. I really don't. You know, I honestly don't understand why he is still in government. He has done wrong. He has not only done that, but he has also breached his own lockdown rules, because he was the one, let's not forget, who drafted up these lockdown rules for the Prime Minister to announce to the nation way back in March. So I really don't understand why he is still, you know, the Prime Minister's right-hand man. I really don't understand, you know. And there are people out there who have been dying. There have been people out there that have been getting sick from this coronavirus, who have been staying at home, who've been doing exactly what the government have told them. And there have been people that have, like I said, that have been dying, that have, you know, have given birth to kids who have, you know, who have wanted to celebrate weddings, etc, etc, but they've not been able to do that because of lockdown. And yet you've got some man out there who is part of the government who thought it was okay to drive 260 miles to technically go and see his family, you know, during Easter weekend, and yet none of us during Easter were able to go and see our own families. You know, that there is just absolutely shocking. It is disgraceful, disgusting, and it is utter horrifying that he was able to do that, but yet we weren't able to do that ourselves. It's one rule for them, one rule for us. That seems to be the way the government are taking this, you know. And so many people, not just the media but other people in Parliament, have actually called for Dominic Cummings to resign, and he's choosing not to, and Boris Johnson's also choosing not to sack him neither, because he seems to think he's done nothing wrong. If that's the case, Prime Minister, then why don't I go outside? Why don't I start leaving my home more, you know? Why don't I start doing more stuff and breaching lockdown rules, you know? Why not? Why? You know what? Why should I go out, meet a friend, and stay socially distanced with them? You know what? I'll tell them to come as close to me as possible if that's the case. You know, honestly, it is an utter shambles. The government is an utter shambles itself now. You know, and they cannot crawl themselves out of this massive hole that they have dug over the last week. You know, and that's not the only problem that I have with the government this week, because I'm going to cast my minds back to Friday last week, just before the whole Dominic Cummings saga took place, and it was Priti Patel who was doing the daily briefing on Friday last week. She announced plans for people travelling into the UK from the 8th of June to go into self-isolation for 2 weeks, for 14 days, and she said that those people travelling into the UK can go to the accommodation where they will be self-isolating for 2 weeks by car, and if they can't go by car, then they can use public transport. So for example, if you travelled somewhere, I don't know, and you just came back from a different country, if you came into the UK from another country and you quarantined yourself for 14 days, then, and you didn't have a car to drive, but you were, say, for example, going to, I don't know, let's say somewhere in Hampshire, for example, and you needed to catch a train to get there, then, you know, if you had the coronavirus symptoms, I mean, you don't know if you've got the coronavirus, but if you had the coronavirus symptoms, you know, or if you just had coronavirus but didn't have any symptoms of it, you didn't see you be infecting everyone that's on that public transport, you know. So I really don't understand why the government said that you could use public transport when that's the worst place that you could be, is on a public transport if you've been travelling back from a foreign country. You know, I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Seriously, I just really don't get it at all. You know, and it's just mind-boggling what actually goes through the government's minds. You know, we're easing lockdown. I mean, literally, technically what the government are trying to do is they're trying to serve us a plate of a second wave. You know, they don't want a second wave to happen. We don't want a second wave to happen, but I swear that that is what they are doing. They are trying to serve it to us on a plate. You know, this is generally what I'm just thinking just lately, you know. They're easing lockdown way too early, can I say, but they're also serving coronavirus to us all on a plate, pretty much a second wave of it. You know, I just find it just, it's just absolutely stupid and ridiculous what they are doing right now, the government, you know. And if there is a second wave, which, you know, I really hope and pray there isn't, I really do hope and pray that there isn't a second wave, but if there is, it's on the government, it's not on the public, it will be on the government, you know. And I do hope and pray that the government do take full responsibility and they say that it was our fault that we caused a second wave in coronavirus. I mean, I don't think they will. I mean, like anything else, they probably will cover it up, just like with everything else that they tend to do. But it's just so ridiculous, you know. And I mean, there is one positive thing out of this, I guess you could say. There's been a lot of memes on the internet over the last week about Dominic Cummings breaking lockdown and stuff like that, and some of the things that he has said, which I found absolutely hilarious, and I have been retweeted some of that stuff on Twitter as well, because I've just found it really hilarious not to retweet, you know. So, but apart from that, you know, it's just a case of, you know, what's next, you know. I mean, the public are surely starting to lose trust in the government, and yet these are the people that we should have been able to trust over the last 10 weeks or so, you know. And now, just looking back, it just kind of makes me think, well, it's been a waste of time me doing these videos, telling you guys all these updates, you know, and stuff like that, because it's just been like, you know, what have I achieved in the space of 8 weeks doing these videos for you guys, you know, and telling you what the government have advised everyone else to do, you know, when really that's all just been pushed back now, really. And, you know, and people are just technically able to do whatever the hell they want, you know. It is absolutely ridiculous, it is stupid, and yeah, I mean, literally that is pretty much all that I can really say on the matter. And I do hope that Dominic Cummings does end up getting his comeuppance. I really want to see him get his comeuppance, I honestly do, you know, because I don't think that this is going away anytime soon. Michael Gove has also said yesterday, at the time of recording this video, that he's also driven to see if his eyesight was okay. I really don't know why the government are backing Dominic Cummings. I really don't. You know, it is stupid that the government are backing him. They know that lockdown was breached. They know that lockdown was broken by him. The rules was broken by him. But yet they seem to think that it was his instincts to do what he did. You know, that's just like me saying it's my instincts to go and break lockdown rules, you know, which, by the way, I haven't done. You know, I am going to confirm that I've not done that at all. I've not broken lockdown rules, you know. Not once have I broken lockdown rules. I have abided by the rules. You know, the only time I've left my house during lockdown is when I have gone to work, and because I am a key worker, and I've taken Buddy for a walk. You know, that is the only time that I have left my house during lockdown, and the other time as well is when I have gone to do essential shopping as well. You know, but apart from that, that is the only time. And even now I am still doing the same thing. You know, the restrictions have been lifted where you can now go to a park, where you can go to a beach, but I'm still staying at home. I'm still, you know, I'm still sitting in my garden. I'm still sitting in my room watching TV. You know, I'm still taking Buddy for a walk every now and then. I'm still going to work and stuff like that. But apart from that, I'm not going out anywhere else. I don't plan to go out anywhere else for the next good few weeks until things do start to go back to normality in theory, and that's another thing I am going to move on to in a minute, is phase 2 of lockdown being eased. But apart from that, that's pretty much it really. I don't want to go out really at the moment. I don't see a point in leaving my home unless it's absolutely necessary to do that. But apart from that, that's pretty much it. So there we go. That's technically my thoughts on what's been happening with the government this week. You know, because I just find it absolutely mind-boggling that, you know, it's one rule for them and one rule for the public. I don't think it's right for them to be technically doing that. You know, and if you are breaching lockdown rules right now, I seriously don't blame you for doing so, because it's just been, I just feel as though I have wasted, just like many people here in the UK have wasted so many weeks staying at home and listening to the government when they can't even abide by their own simple rules, you know. So there we go. Right, I'm now going to move on to my next thing which I'm going to talk about, which is phase 2 of lockdown being eased. So cast your minds back to a couple of weeks ago. Boris Johnson announced a roadmap out of lockdown easing for the UK. The first phase of that obviously came into effect a few days later after the announcement, which was obviously the restrictions being lifted in terms of doing outdoor activities, in terms of going to parks, going to beaches, going for walks, jogging, cycling and playing sports with members of your household, like football for example, or etc, etc. So that was the first phase. So now we're going into phase 2, because next week is the beginning of June. It is June the 1st on Monday, and June the 1st it was planned that some schools will be returning in the UK. Now those schools, school years should I say, are reception, year 1 and year 6. Now there are also plans for year 10 students and year 12 students who are taking their exams next year to return at some point in June as well. Those plans are being put in place for year 10 and year 12 students who are taking exams next year to return to school from at some point in June, which is good, because then that means that they can start preparing for their exams for next year. And also as well, Boris has also announced recently that car dealerships and outdoor market stalls are going to be reopening as well from the 1st of June as well. So if you're looking to buy a new car, then that's good news for you, because that means that you'll be able to go out and buy yourself a new car. You might be able to, what with the money you may have saved up during lockdown, during quarantine and stuff. So anyway, so there's that. And then he also announced the 15th of June, so this is within a couple of weeks time. You will be able to go out and do non-essential shopping, and I'm talking places like clothing shops and stuff like that. Now I have got the full list of things that will be reopening from the 15th of June. So the full list of shops to reopen from next month includes food retailers, chemists, hardware homeware stores, fashion shops, charity shops, betting shops and arcades, tailors, dress fitters and fashion designers, car dealerships, auction houses, antique stores, retail art galleries, photography studios, gift shops and retail spaces in theatres, museums, libraries, heritage sites and tourism sites, mobile phone stores, indoor and outdoor markets, craft fairs and similar types of retail as well. So those are the things that will be reopening from the 15th of June, or like car dealerships will be opening from the 1st of June. So there we go. Now obviously as well, Wetherspoons have within the last week announced their plans to reopen. Now obviously they've not been given the go-ahead by the government to reopen, unfortunately. At the moment it's still looking like as it's planned. It looks like as if hospitality sectors, that's pubs, restaurants and cinemas, will be reopening in July. Now I'm not going to talk about Wetherspoons and their plans to reopen in this video. I am going to be doing a separate video at the beginning of June, because I would like to talk more about Wetherspoons really in more detail in a separate video. So that is what I'm going to be doing, so look out for that. That's going to be appearing within the next week or so on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial, so check that out when that is uploaded. But I will talk a little bit about Wetherspoons, and I will talk about how they plan to reopen, and I'm just gonna really go into detail about it, and I'm gonna talk more about why people shouldn't be boycotting it and stuff like that. So so that video, like I say, you can look out for it. It will be coming out within the next few weeks or so on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. So make sure you do check that out when it is uploaded. Now McDonald's, I want to talk a little bit about McDonald's, because the taste of a Big Mac, I feel as though it's just getting more and more closer to me as the week or days go on. Because believe it or not, today, at the time of recording this, McDonald's have posted an update, and it's good news for people who can drive and can go to a drive-through for McDonald's. I'm going to read you their statement now that they posted today. So it says, "We are on our way back. All drive-thrus to reopen by the 4th of June. So following a successful pilot, we can confirm that 924 drive-thru restaurants will reopen between the 2nd and the 4th of June 2020. We will also add 75 restaurants to McDelivery via either Uber Eats or Just Eat. In order to allow for social distancing, we will have fewer employees in our kitchens and service areas. To help our smaller teams, we will be offering a limited menu, no breakfast wraps or shakes, over reduced hours 11 AM till 10 PM. We continue to ask that you limit your spend to £25 and use contactless payment methods wherever possible. Our teams are adjusting to new safety and hygiene procedures which will help them to work safely and social distance. We appreciate your continued patience. We are delighted to be returning to communities across the UK and Ireland, but it will look different and take a little longer. Please bear with us. Through our website and social media channels, we will confirm the locations of the reopening restaurants on each morning from the 2nd of June. So that is the statement that McDonald's gave today. That is some good news. That does mean that the taste of a Big Mac is edging ever so closer to me. I can almost smell it. You know, I'm pretty certain a lot of you guys are excited, but because, you know, I'm sure just like me, the last time you guys had a McDonald's was in March. I miss McDonald's, you miss McDonald's, we all miss McDonald's. You know what, I tend to miss a lot of stuff at the moment. I'm missing KFC, I'm missing McDonald's, I'm missing Wetherspoons, I'm just missing so much stuff. I just cannot wait to get back to that normality where I'm able to do all that kind of thing again. You know, where I'm able to go out to KFC and McDonald's and to the beach, etc, etc. I'm just really looking forward to doing that sort of stuff again, you know. So that is some good news, I guess. Greggs have also announced within the last week that 800 of its branches will be reopening again soon, which means that, you know, the taste of a vegan steak bake or a vegan sausage roll or a steak bake itself is edging ever so closer to us again. And again, I really can't, you know, I have had Greggs before and I do love their steaks. Their steak bakes are really nice, and I think again that's probably something that I'm probably going to enjoy eating when I'm able to get back out there again and go to Greggs. I'm hoping that there's one in Bournemouth that might reopen. I do believe actually the nearest one to me is Bournemouth Town Centre, so which is a little bit annoying because that's quite a far trek to go, but you know, it is what it is. But I think really apart from that, that is pretty much it, other than to say that Nando's are reopening 94 restaurants for takeaway this week, and I believe that it has started. Yeah, it has started. It started yesterday. At the time of recording this, they had 54 branches reopening yesterday, and a further 40 branches have opened today at the time of recording this video, which is good news for you peri-peri chicken lovers out there who love a good Nando's. I'm sure that you'll be going to one of their restaurants that have reopened for a takeaway of their peri-peri chicken, etc, etc. But apart from that, that is pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about today, this week, on my coronavirus update, episode 8. And of course this is week 2, believe it or not, of me doing this update from my garden. So I thought, as it's once again another lovely day outside, I thought I would come out here with no beer this time. Remember last week I had a beer on hand, but I don't this time. I was going to come out with a glass of Coke, but I'm not really that thirsty at the moment, so I might, when I finish talking, go and get a glass of Coke, because I am starting to feel thirsty now, believe it or not. But apart from that, that is all. That's all that I've got to talk about this week. So thank you for watching. Oh, there is one more thing actually. One more thing before I go. Clap for carers. So for the last 10 weeks, many people across the UK have been going outside their windows, their doors, their balconies, etc., their back gardens, their front gardens, etc, etc, and they have been clapping for the NHS and for the key workers. And can I just say a massive thank you to those key workers and to the NHS for carrying on doing what they do best. Keep on at it, because you are doing an extremely good job of what you're doing. Now, a lot of people have been coming outside, they've been clapping for 1 minute and making so much noise to the point that maybe the NHS staff might have been able to hear you from your street. Now, I'm going to say this, the founder of the Clap for Carers has announced that this Thursday, that's tomorrow at the time of recording this, the 28th of May, should be the last week that we do Clap for Carers. The reason being is because it's been 10 weeks. She feels as though that, you know, 10 weeks is enough to show our appreciation of the NHS and for key workers, and to be going outside our homes and clapping for them for 1 minute every Thursday at 8 PM. She feels as though we should be doing something annually to show appreciation to the key workers and to the NHS. So I'm sure something of that might happen. But yeah, so that's just a little update to bring you on Clap for Carers. But if you have been doing it for the last 10 weeks, a massive thank you to all you people out there who have been showing appreciation to the NHS and to key workers like myself. We do really appreciate it, and we do keep on doing what we do best, and obviously and just go out there, go out to the front line and do what we do, you know. But apart from that, that is everything that I have got to update you on this week. So a massive thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this video, then please hit the thumbs up button. It's just down below. If you're not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, then please do subscribe. There's more YouTube content coming out for you between now and the end of June, which, by the way, I'm just going to add, I will be chatting about what's coming up on my YouTube channel in June. From Monday the 1st of June is when you can expect that video, and I'm also going to be talking about my weekly vlogs as well during that video, so there's an update. I will bring it to you. So that's all from me. Thank you for watching, and do join me for my next video, which will be coming out on Friday the 29th of May. It's going to be a Steve's Gaming video. I'll be playing Angry Birds on iOS on my iPad. But from me though, it's goodbye. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.
Is this the way to Barnard Castle? You see my vision's a bit of a hassle. Is this the way to Barnard Castle, where sweet Murray waits for me? Sha-la-la-la, load of bullshit. Sha-la-la-la, load of bullshit. Sha-la-la-la, load of bullshit. It was Murray's birthday treat.